is shining, that's the important thing. The sky is clear, which is even more important, not just for the aircraft, but also for parachuting, which we're going to be doing very, very shortly indeed. So get yourselves ready, belt up, get those teas and coffees in, get the kids sorted, ready for a fantastic afternoon's aerial entertainment. And to get this show going, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please give a massive welcome to Private Hobbs from the Parachute Regiment.
Thank you, and welcome to this afternoon's display, brought to you by the British Army's parachute display team, the Red Devils. My name's Private Hobbs, as I was introduced to you just there, and my job today is to talk to you about the display as it's unfolding in front of you, as well as giving you a little bit of a background about the team as well. So with me on the ground then we have Private Henderson in the middle of the arena. As you can see, he's laid out the cross for us in the middle of the arena as well. So this cross isn't a target for the team, although they do like to try and hit it when they can. The main purpose for the cross in the centre of the arena is it's an indicator from us on the ground down here to those up in the plane that it's safe for them to exit the plane and begin their descent down to the ground. If the cross was to be folded in any way into an I or a T shape, it would give another indicator either to pull off the display or that we've got high winds and a direction for them to land in. It's all a backup though. We do have radio communications to them, but if any of those communications were to go down, we'd have that cross as a last resort indicator to them out there in the plane. They'll be sticking units within the British Army as well. We train a lot of special forces as well as the Pathfinder units. So they'll come down and do some training with us. We'll train them on both their landing and then we'll give them some extra little coaching tips in their free fall as well. Not role specific, but a little bit of a side note for them. So as you can see, they've set the smoke off in the centre of the arena. That's how the plane is flying over the head for Woody Run. So if you watch up towards the plane, you might see two long pieces of red and yellow craft paper fly out the back of the plane. Very technical pieces of equipment, I know. And on the bottom of those, there's a little piece of silicon, which is our weight on the bottom. Unfortunately, we can't offer any prizes for anybody that catches these woodies, so no prizes for returning those to us. There you go, you can see them out now. Two long pieces of red and yellow craft paper. Anyone with a keen eye might also be able to spot the jump master. He'll be sticking his head out the side of that door and he'll be watching.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so as I say, Henderson's in the middle of the arena now. He's giving the winds to the people up in the plane, so he's telling them what we're getting on an average and then what we're also getting on a gust. So they're up there making their decisions off those woodies and what we're getting down here on the ground as to where they want to set up. If they want to set up, if we've got really strong winds, they'll set up a lot further upwind. If we've got weak winds, then they'll set up a lot closer to the drop zone as they're not going to get as much push under canopy. We can jump into up to 20 knots of wind, which, for those of you that don't know, that's 23 miles an hour of wind. So the parachute on landing has a normal speed of 20 knots, so 23 miles an hour. However, with the landings that we do, with the high performance turns that we do at the low rates, you can land up to 50 miles an hour with the fast canopies that will be down first. And that's ground speed as well, not relative to the wind. So then gone to either 2 or 3 para, and then from there potentially onto 1 para as well. We have 2 members from 1 para at the moment. Over the clouds all around us now, unfortunately. We didn't get to see them exiting the plane itself, although the plane is just finishing its jump run, and you've just got to see the last person exiting the plane there. So that wingsuit that we unfortunately missed the full flight of, that will be Corporal Stephen Hanley, will be the jump master for today's display. So either he or Lance Corporal Oliver Goss, who is the secondary jump master for today's display. They're going to both race down towards the ground. Everybody else is flying up above them is going to keep their eyes on those two jumpers, and they're going to set the landing pattern for everybody else to follow. So all those jumpers that are up above them, it looks like we've got Lance Corporal Oliver Goss setting the landing pattern for us first today. Straight over the top of the landing area with the smoke trailing behind him. The jump master for today's display, Lance Corporal Oliver Goss. Can we get a big cheer for Ollie Goss as he comes into land, please? He's going to set up nice and high and get as much speed as he can out of his canopy as he comes into land, despite all that wind that we've got in for today's display. Closely followed behind Ollie Goss, we have Corporal Stephen Hanley from the wingsuit. Oh. So as I said, all those two jumpers behind Ollie and Steve, they were watching their pattern all the way down and watching where they land, make any adjustments they need to off their turns. So they're using those as further woodies so they can see where they land off. If they land short or along that cross, they can then make their adjustments. And the whole formation being piloted at the top by Lance Corporal Cameron Clark. Cameron Clark's been staff pilot on the team for a few years. He's done over 2,000 crew jumps such as this one here today. Not all as big as this jump that we're doing today. Like I said, if we don't get as much height as we managed to today, we might put something where there's 2 or 3 parachutes attached together. But it all depends on how high we manage to get and whether they manage to achieve it under the canopy. It all takes quite a lot of skill. You've got to be quite accurate, manage to pin each other with those parachutes in mid-air. You've all got to come in at the right speed, the right height, and not hit each other too hard. So as you can see, the cameraman behind them, Team Sergeant Nathan Fisher, he's going to get out of their way, so they've got plenty of space to come in as the formation that they are. And he's going to do his landing pattern for us as well. He's going to set up nice and high, build up as much speed as he can, fight all that wind all the way in, come down nice and quickly for the landing today. So there you go as well. Diamond, bringing it in all the way into landing. It's going to slip right to the bottom, as they're doing now. Split that probe, and everyone's landing together. And there you go, ladies.
Next, we have another difference, as Bob carefully selected flight paths to cater for differing wind conditions and aircraft energy states. The Tutor is constructed of a carbon composite material and has a 180 horsepower Lycoming piston engine. Bob now rolls 90 degrees while pointing straight up before completing a stall turn at almost 0 airspeed. The two 90-degree turns allow Bob to continue in the same direction. The Tutor is operated by No. 6 Flying Training School in partnership with Babcock International Group, primarily flying University Air Squadron students and RAF Air Cadets. There are 13 air experience flights across the UK that offer flights to up to 20,000 cadets each year, and this could be you if you are between 12 and 17 years old. Unlike the last stall turn, this one is flown conventionally, exiting in the opposite direction to the entry. In the next manoeuvre, the 4-point roll, Bob delicately uses the rudder to support the nose above the horizon while flying at 90 degrees angle of bank. You may have noticed the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund heart on the belly of this aircraft. seen since 2022 to celebrate this fantastic charity. The benevolent fund supports the Royal Air Force personnel, air cadets and veterans whenever they are in need, and we're very proud are considering going to university. There are 15 university air squadrons across the UK. Students on the university air squadrons are taught to fly the tutor by highly experienced military flying instructors. The university air squadrons provide a huge opportunity for personal development as well as a wide variety of adventure training in the UK and expeditions across the globe. We are now in a high energy section of the display with the Derry 10, Quarter Clover and now the Loose, which is a quintessential aerobatic manoeuvre. As he pulls up, Bob is subjected to 5G. He aims to pitch the aircraft around an imaginary circle in the sky, and even when inverted, the centrifugal forces keep him pressed into his seat. Today the Royal Air Force is recruiting for multiple rewarding and demanding professions and has an exciting future ahead of it with the continued development of our combat and maritime patrol aircraft and UK Space Command. These will soon be joined by the introduction of our airborne early warning aircraft, the E-7 Wedgetail, and new remotely piloted capabilities with the Protector.
Of course, and 4 Gazelles, a similar type, but all in very different colours. So this is a one-off. If you look over to the right-hand side now, coming in, you'll see this formation. The Raven's smoke is on. Unique photographic opportunity celebrating this Wales National Air Show in conjunction with the Armed Forces Day as well. Please welcome this magnificent formation, 10 aircraft, Team Raven, and the Gazelle Display Squadron. Flying to similar formations that can always be a little bit tricky, particularly in a bumpy wind like this, but the great thing is that the Gazelle's flexible rotor blades help dampen out those extra bumps which the guys in the RBs ahead, of course, are suffering themselves. We'll hopefully, I think we're going to get another pass, and then we'll be looking at the team break before, so smoke is coming back on. We'll just listen in. Team rolling out, and of course led by Sid Shirley, you will have seen it. And there's the break coming. And I thought that was absolutely magnificent. What a lovely start to the day. It would have been nice to have seen a bit more, but sadly we're on a very, very tight schedule at the moment, and we're doing our best to get the air display back. The Gazelle itself was designed by Erich Bafial in the south of France in the late 1960s. A lovely little sports car it is to fly as well, very agile as you'll see from this display. It's actually a 5-seat aircraft, but the 3 in the back is a bit tight. Braking now to start their formation display proper. The aircraft is used by all 3 services for pilot training, battlefield observation, light transport, reconnaissance, and in the case of the British Army, for what we refer to as Air Observation Post, and that's designed and developed during the course of the Second World War to direct artillery fire onto the enemy. There was the first rotary aircraft to
What do you want this bit rolled? Do you want that bit rolled? This bit rolled?
The whole team is staffed by volunteer pilots. Jim Richards, I mentioned, he joined the Army straight from school at the age of 18, commissioned into the Royal Artillery, the same regiment his grandfather, father and uncle served in. They've come today. Gazelle has cruising speed, tops about 164 miles an hour, a maximum speed of 193, but not something you would do very often, but still holds the record as the fastest single-engine helicopter manufactured today. Going through their motions now in singletons, breaking through into various formation details, bringing up in the number 2 position behind Jim Richards. We've got Andy Wellesley, again an ex-Army pilot, been flying for well over 40 years, and flew initially with the Royal Marines and operated around the world in the Falklands, Belize, Bosnia and Cyprus, accruing well over 2,000 hours just on the Gazelle, but now flying the more comfortable executive global 6000 business jet. And distinctive whine coming from the engine. Very much by the way the air is compressed into the leading edge of the intake. And let's not forget, flying up the rear and doing an awful lot of administration and management for the team is Kev Matteson. He flew with the Royal Navy 4 different times. He flew the Gazelle, the Sea King, the Merlin and the Sea Hawk, joining back in 1982. And would you believe has flown 10 different types of aircraft with over 4,500 hours to his credit now. A lovely braking manoeuvre, pulling up high as number 4 pulls out, and the other 3 moving into what we call line of stern. Number 4 finishes off that sea-finding turn of his, and his aim is to fly through the middle of the formation heading in the other direction. So keep your eyes peeled for this next manoeuvre. Here they are lining up. All the pilots unsurprisingly love flying these aircraft. The reputation is for being incredibly powerful and responsive. No real vices to it at all. A superb machine. Very often referred to as the E-type Jaguar of the skies. Equally nicknamed, however, the Screaming Chicken Legs this year, because they are celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Royal Auxiliary Air Force. He's a great supporter of all things British, and particularly Royal Air Force 10, despite being Norwegian. Got an amazing background, lovely travelling, an interesting stable of aircraft that he owns and operates over there. Actually owns a second 2-seat trainer Vampire in addition to this, as well as the ever popular MiG-15, which we just love to see as well. Alongside that, it's got a T-Bird and uses a whole range of different experienced pilots to fly all of his aircraft. So Ken heads up an organisation called the Norwegian Air Force Historical Squadron, non-profit organisation dedicated to keeping unique aircraft like this where they belong, which of course is up in the air. They display the aircraft as much as they can throughout Europe, and what Ken does to keep the cost down is he'll deploy an aircraft across to Britain and leave it alive in 1957. Of course, Ken flying it as gently as possible, keeping the G down, of course, to prevent extending the fatigue, or rather to extend the fatigue life of the aircraft, rather than preventing any further damage or limitations that obviously he wishes to avoid. This particular aircraft was built under license in Switzerland in 1952 and flew originally. Well, Ken is down here. If you look up closely, he's temporarily decorated this particular aircraft into Royal Auxiliary Air Force Squadron markings just for this season to celebrate the 100th anniversary. And the Canny of Monkstew may well, I don't know if you've seen the film, the Disney film The Shepherd, but it was used during the filming of this of that particular story up at MOD Skelthorpe. It's a British drama short film written and directed by Ian Softley. It also starred Ben Radcliffe and John Travolta, would you believe. John was actually the deputy producer and himself, of course, a great fan of all things aviation. He's been a pilot for many decades. Himself got a huge amount of experience, both as a Norwegian Air Force pilot and then latterly as a commercial. Tom Cassels and Michael Picking, the Starlings. This range of aircraft has been tweaked, refined and improved over the past 4 decades, with sales across the globe making it one of the most popular display aircraft going. Starting off with their signature dotty smoke, and that's controls and a signature mark of theirs as well, enabling them to not just carve various pretty designs in the sky, but also to do what we call is sky typing or skywriting, being able to spell out messages in the sky. And that's the sound of Tom there in the front, putting up a good 6-7G there. It's not a tweak more, but you cannot quite understand everything that's going on in the cockpit. But here, the wingman Michael, having complete and utter faith in Tom, they've worked very closely together. Hugely successful individual pilots. And Tom, just decades and decades. In fact, he was telling us some wonderful stories last night in the bar, just what he's learned. He knows every corner of these aircraft and the foibles and fickleness of how to fly them. The 300NG is another huge leap forward for the design and history of these all-carbon fibre airframes. But one of the things we noted was just the sheer amount of comfort in the aircraft that they have now. They used to be very noisy, bumpy, and drafty aircraft, but this one, much improved aerodynamics, higher degree of manoeuvrability, and precise handling. Described as a very fresh and a really fast aircraft. Now here, of course, the formation pilot has to listen into the cadence of the words that each leader, you'll get to know this during the course of the afternoon. His aim is to replicate exactly the movement and with the right timing, of course, of the lead pilot, in this case Tom, calling the shots. Rudder going in now for the combined pair stall turn. You'll almost run out of airspeed at the top of that, but you just, when you've got a little bit of airflow left, just put that rudder kick in to ensure that you safely come out the other side, rather than just letting it fall and tumble back to the airstream. Superb rolling brake there as well. Fantastic. Now we start the action. Keep your eyes peeled on both of them. And then we snap rolling as they climb. And now you can hear it goes on the end of that cadence there. That final phrase is when the action actually happens. There we go, the G coming on hard, all the blood is running down to their legs and they have to squeeze really, really hard to maintain that, rolling as they go up. Just instead of stall-telling, pulling the aircraft over with a final few knots running over the wings.
For a chance to win £1,000 with EasyJet.
Yeah, well look out now because we have got a very special treat indeed in the form of a Rolls-Royce Mark 19 Spitfire. What a wonderful sight and sound that is. Something really special, isn't there, about having a solo Spitfire at any flying displays. It puts shivers down your spine when we look back and reflect on the phenomenal achievement that the early fighters had. The Spitfire, of course, coming out of the Supermarine stable, the design studios of R.J. Mitchell and his men. That unique elliptical wing, sharp enough to get the speed required, but still just thick enough to get the all-essential cannons and machine guns in the earlier marks of aircraft. But this one, special in many ways, it was the later generation mark of aircraft used for high-level reconnaissance work with Mark 19. And fitted with the more powerful 2,000 plus horsepower Griffon engine, later taking on ceremonial duties with the early establishment of the Royal Air Force's own historic aircraft flight, now known, of course, as the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. Flown today by Alistair Stegg-Williams, an ex-Army Air Corps Lynx pilot, well known across the country, now in charge of the heritage flights for Rolls-Royce, the aircraft based at East Midlands Airfield. For the additional power was essentially a Royal Air Force and Royal Naval specification for Griffon engine Spitfire, flying much earlier than you perhaps think, in November 1941. Mark 19 series of Spitfires were the last and most successful photographic reconnaissance. Also fitted with the pressurized cabin of the Mark 10, and the fuel capacity was increased 256 gallons. That's 3.5 times that of the original Spitfire. The first Mark 19s entered service in May 1944. And by the end of the war, the type had virtually replaced the earlier Mark 11. A total of 225 were built, with production ceasing in early 1946, and they were used in frontline RAF service right through until 1954, just a couple of years before the establishment of the Royal Air Force's historic flight. from the front in the venerable swordfish. Just on the other side from you, the Westland wasp. And inside, which you'll see demonstrating a little later on, the Royal Navy's current frontline helicopter, the Wildcat, from Yeovilton, and giving us a first few minutes of heritage flying past in formation for our pleasure. And of course, it wouldn't be the same if we didn't, from a heritage perspective, call the rest of the Royal Navy to their flying stations for this next phase of display. 'Brought to you by Navy Wings, part of the recently formed Navy Wings Heritage Flight, taking on the role to preserve and fly these historic naval aircraft for us all to enjoy for many years to come. Aiming to inspire future generations, but also, perhaps equally importantly, to remember the service and sacrifice of those involved with flying with the Navy and promote a deeper understanding of the important part played by the Royal Naval Air Service and the Fleet Air Arm in the history of the country. Notably now funded entirely by public donations, of course the charity always seeking your help to keep these in the air. Just two of an impressive fleet of aircraft presented here today. They actually have other swordfish undergoing restoration and refurbishment, but have a Supermarine Seafarer, North American Harbour, the Stinson Reliance, and of course the Tiger Moth. But on the jet side, additionally undergoing restoration and hopefully a return to flying a Hawker Seahawk and a Hawker Sea Fury, alongside two de Havilland Chipmunks that are used for training. All of them based at Royal Naval Air Station in Yeovilton. Originally called the Sea Scout, and that's partly because it was developed alongside the Army Scout helicopter. Very similar fuselage, same roar of that Nimbus, Rolls-Royce Nimbus engine. It was one of the world's first frigate-based helicopters. First flew in 1963. Did excellent 25 years service before being retired from the Royal Navy in 1988. About 700 shaft horsepower, replaced by the Lynx eventually in the late 80s, and then of course that in turn being replaced the Wildcats we'll see in another few minutes. This aircraft could however carry 2 torpedoes or 2 anti-ship missiles plus a GPMG, the general purpose machine gun. Sterling service from both the Army and the Navy with this particular mark of helicopter. The first missile being fired by the Royal Navy, the 9 was from a Wasp of the Argentinian submarine, the ARA Santa Fe, during the Falklands conflict. It was a success. The missile hit the submarine, preventing it submerging, and thus the sub was captured. And that in turn enabled other ground operations to take place. It also served with many other navies around the world: New Zealand, South Africa, Netherlands, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Brazil. Generally with a crew of 1 pilot plus 1 air crewman or missile aimer. Same for the Army version as well. It was armed with the SS-11 missile. Of course, in those early days we didn't have the fire and forget digital systems of today. Much harder to fight the aircraft before that technology came in. Can carry up to 4 passengers, however. It was also fitted with a hook for underslung loads and a winch for search and rescue work. But if you take a very close look, you'll notice that there is a large bulge towards the rear of the main fuselage, and that was to enable an entire stretcher to be fitted across the back seat. Showing the agile manoeuvring capability, not just his skill, but that of the stability of the airframe as well itself, pirouetting across the sky. The whole machine often referred to as the ship's Land Rover, of course. That's because wherever you get an aircraft, it's always eventually going to be used for some sort of utility work, and this was a great people and equipment mover as well. Has got a VNE of 200 knots, but very rarely will that be flown. Mostly pottering around about 90. Crew of 3. Originally designed by Fairey as a private venture to replace the Greek Fairey 3F aircraft. Originally designated the TSR-1, the Torpedo Spotter Reconnaissance, but redesigned with the Bristol Pegasus engine up front, redesignated the TSR-2, no relation to the more modern jet-powered TSR-2, but this one first flew in 1934, taken into frontline Navy service in 1936 as the Swordfish Mark I. You would have noted, listening on to the airwaves earlier on, that the call sign attached to this formation was the Toronto formation, and of course that takes us back to the famous attack in November 1940 when 21 Swordfish effectively stopped the Italian battle fleet from taking any big part in World War II. That was just one of many activities and operations, however. More included the very famous chase after the fast and dangerous battleship the Bismarck ended when a Swordfish put a torpedo through the steering gear, and the home fleet were able to sink her with gunfire. And then in February 1942, 6 Swordfish attempted to stop the Prince Eugene, the Scharnhorst and the Gneisenau from moving. Only 2 such awards to Fleet Air Arm aircrew in World War II. Let's not forget, however, the really important work, the hard work the Swordfish played in the conflict was that of protecting the Atlantic and the Arctic convoys. A huge proportion of the war material we required came from North America, and therefore those convoys of ships were always in danger of submarine traffic. There were naval aircraft carriers, escort carriers. Here now running in at around 120 knots. Please welcome the Royal Navy's Black Cat, the Wildcat. Climbing up into initial 500-foot hover and then conducting a 90-degree nose down before breaking out to your left-hand side. Training, streaming eventually onto the Wildcat, and has made many operational deployments since then out in the Middle East, and also training in the maritime counter-terrorism role on interdiction and also assisting in maritime terrorism incidents. You see a lot of tight turns and very tight wingovers. Has distinguished, but this is a real heavy fighting machine. A new generation of fleet air-armed helicopters packed with cutting-edge sensors and mission equipment, featuring the anti-surface guided weapon and the addition of the Marklet missile, the laser-guided rocket system from Thales, which entered service in 2021. It's a delight and pleasure to watch, with John absolutely glued to Nigel's leading manoeuvres, and of course as you learn more and more about these formation displays in the past, you've learned about how the pilot in the front calls it and how the number two has to absolutely put in exactly the same control movements to ensure he stays glued to the track and direction of the lead pilot. Relatively light. Up now, G coming on into another of the classic barrel rolls as they turn gently, and you see how the second pilot just replicating those inputs from the lead pilot. Normal cruising speed for this aircraft around about 160 miles an hour, but they don't do a lot of normal, these two guys, because displaying them is just absolutely superb. They'll be flying these wonderful aircraft, anything between about 50 miles an hour and 200 miles an hour. It's a delightful aircraft, very much a tourer as well as a aerobatic aircraft. This aircraft is locally or touring across the Channel to France. Celebrating 45 years in production this year. These particular aircraft were imported from America and they were shipped over from Baltimore many years ago in the hands of two previous owners, but these aircraft bought by Nigel and John Dodds keep the element of what was the Firefly display, now displaying under a new name of the Firebirds. So at long last, having made its way around most of the western side of the bay, this aircraft in the hands today of Andrew Whitehouse, he's the owner and boss of historic helicopters of Charles. Please welcome the mighty Seeker. More about that later on. But these helicopters entered Royal Air Force service in 1978 as the HAR-3. The 3A joined in 1996. Both marks used in the search and rescue role. And they operated in those days from 6 locations around the UK, each a location supplying 2 aircraft. The aircraft and crews were required to be on station with a 15-minute readiness call during daylight hours and 45-minute readiness during the hours of dark. In its search role, the Sea-King was able to operate to very precise navigational standards, beginning with a multi-band homing system, satellite navigation system, search radar, very comprehensive radio on suite, and also a large collection of radios. And that was of course partly because of all the different agencies that they would have had to interface with in the course of their search and rescue work. Bear in mind that this was often in coastal regions, not just over the sea, but in the mountains very close to the ocean as well. To assist with rescue, the helicopter is fitted with a hydraulically operated main rescue hoist and electrically operated emergency rescue hoist, and of course all the connections required for powering medical equipment such as incubators. They would also have been fitted with video and infrared detection pods, very similar to those used by police helicopters, to help the search for casualties both in the sea and on the coastline. All the crews trained to operate using night vision goggles, usually with 4 crew on board this particular type of helicopter, 2 pilots, one of whom would be the captain, a radar operator, who acts as the winch operator, and of course a wind. This particular Westland 61 Sea-King is a British licensed-built version of the American Sikorsky S-61 helicopter of the same name, but differed considerably from the American version with Rolls-Royce dome engines. Also in military roles had British-made anti-submarine warfare systems and a computerized flight control system as well. Primarily designed for performing anti-submarine warfare missions, Another variant was also adapted by Westlands as a troop transport known as the Commando, operating in what we know as the jungly role. So a very, very versatile machine indeed. Coming to the hover, I'm expecting to see a winchman being deployed any moment. Those of you a bit nearer with your binos or whereas the Royal Air Force Search and Rescue operating in the livery you see here today. The other main role with the Royal Navy was, of course, to meet their requirement for a ship-based airborne early warning platform, carrying what was known as the bag on the side of the airframe, and very large radar indeed. This particular aircraft was one that was painted a very dark sea grey, particularly in the post-war Falkland period. There you see the winchman. Interesting enough, the winch operator would have also had a tiny little joystick which gives them a little bit of range of not total control at all, because that still rests with the captain of the aircraft up the front, but just enabling very, very fine movement. It really requires total crew cooperation as well to ensure the safe recovery of the casualty. With those six-bladed rotor head and also a tail rotor as well. The rotor head providing really fantastic hovering, stable hovering capability. Giving everybody a salute from historic helicopters to the Royal Air Force. That huge fuselage able to take a total of 17 passengers if necessary. With a full fuel load, it can fly for up to 6 hours, a maximum speed of around about 140 miles, giving it an operational radius of 270 nautical miles. Winch you see there, the cable able to extend out in excess of 200 feet and also equally capable of lifting up to 3 adults simultaneously. Through some very, very graceful manoeuvres, high wingovers, loops, pulling you around the sky. It's actually terrific. You just keep the power on. It's like what Clarkson describes as having lots of torques. These aircraft were the workhorse of the aerobatic team of the Soviet Union from 1975. They took first place in both the men and women's competitions at the 1976 World Aerobatic Championships in Kyiv in Ukraine. Many of the aircraft built in Romania, but also heavily flown in Ukraine as well. The aircraft aircraft coming out of the well-known stable of the Yakovlev aerobatic display team, still sporting those colours. World leaders in formation flying, of course. Based at Henstridge Airfield. In the hands run brilliantly well by the very popular Jez Hopkinson. And Paul managed to get himself a slot with the team a couple of years ago before, very sadly, Jez decided to hang up the team's hat and move on to other business. Just how much Paul really enjoys flying this machine, as I would myself actually. Now he's Guy, got lots of rotary experience in the past. He's currently flying the search and rescue as a commander on the Augusta Western 189 helicopter for the HM Coast Guards based at St. Athens. He previously flew the Mark II, 3 and 4 Chinook for the Royal Air Force. He completed 7 tours of Afghanistan, some of the most challenging and rewarding operational flying anybody could ever wish, very much involved in the large-scale formation, insertion and extractions to Singleton medical emergency response teams known as the MERT teams. An outstanding job they did as well. Qualified as an instructor back in 2010 and became an A2 QHI training officer on the Chinook operational conversion flight. He was a well-known and very capable display pilot, displaying the Chinook Mark II during the 2012 and 2013 seasons, before then going on to teaching and mentoring the following display pilots after him. He's always had a bit of a passion, though, for flying proper airplanes, as we refer to these. Wonderful aerobatic historic Tempest, the Hunter and the Harrier. The prototype Hurricane made its maiden flight in November 1935 with deliveries to Royal Air Force 111 Squadron at Northolt in Christmas 1937. The Hurricane was the first British monoplane 8-gun fighter, the first Royal Air Force aircraft to exceed 300 miles an hour, and in level flight it was the first production fighter with a retractable main undercarriage. In the hands today of the delightful and amusing and very talented Trevor Dugan, himself an Irishman, an ex-backseater navigator through the Warbird Harvard Training School, then qualifying on the Spitfire. And now in this magnificent and very historic Hurricane we have here today. This aircraft, B7497, a Mark I, manufactured in August 1940 by Hawker Aircraft Limited at Kingston. It was flown operationally at the very height of the Battle of Britain from the famous fighter station Kenley in East London. The aircraft was lost during an operational patrol on 28th of September over Sutton in Kent. Following an in-depth restoration completed by Hawker Restorations, this aircraft returned to the skies as recently as August 2018. Its new home is now the Imperial War Museum, Duxford, where it sits in the Battle of Britain hangar beside the Spitfire Mark I. It's very different from the Spitfire, however. It's noisier, it's draggier, and it's a rugged workhorse. While flying this aircraft, It will be vibrating inside with the wooden and fabric panels responsible for a lot of the noise. Air will be leaking through losses which has been inflicted by the squadron earlier in that summer. And of course 501 very much bore the brunt of the early days, having been involved with the early expeditionary force in France, and giving you a lovely topside pass now. Trevor repositioning the aircraft a little bit closer for you to appreciate the sight and sound of this marvellous machine. It was used operationally for the first time by Sergeant Saywood in the afternoon of the 24th of September. His service career was, however, very short-lived as it was shot down. You'll hear his voice in a few moments, bringing the sixth ship now back in from the 45 degree for the underside pass. Flying alongside Sid in the number 2 position was Pete Wells, another extremely well-known name in the air display. Keep your eyes here now, coming in from the right, the main formation, 1, 2, 3 and 6. In box formation for a barrel roll. And letting it out. 1, visual 4. Smoke on, go. Smoke off, go. And there is the sound of Sid just leading the team out to the left-hand side as 4 and 5 re-enter from as well. Putting up, G coming on, of course, as they stretch there, putting that little twist at the top to make the quarter of that clover, as we refer to it. But keep your eyes out on the left-hand side now as the main team with 1, 2, 3 and 6 come in for the cyclone. In the third seat there's Barry Gwinnett, another experienced general aviation pilot, had a PPL for almost 40 years or so now. He's got several thousand hours, and having displayed the Yak 52 previously in his 10th season with Team Raven. Retired from the building services into play. Coming in on what we call the 45, that's sort of halfway between straight out to sea and the left-hand side. They'll be putting in a little twist. Very, very important now for the other pilots, working hard on the outside of that formation to replicate all the control movements of the leader. Doing that brilliantly well. 4 and 5 now coming in again from the right hand side to pull up into what we call the prattle loop. Keep coming on as they get to the top here. They'll be looking back over their shoulders, checking their wings are level with the horizon, and then they're building up the speed again, giving them the energy to go back out to the left hand side for the next maneuver. Keep your eyes out to sea now as the main formation 1, 2. Brake, go. Again, very calmly, very professionally leading the team there into that lovely break, beautiful photographing opportunity.
And rolling left now.
And there again you see those 2 outside men working very hard to absolutely put the right cadence and right control inputs in to replicate every maneuver of the leader. At the end of this, here they go now into the echelon fallaways. And as they do that, keep a lookout now for 4 and 5 rushing in front of you. They'll be putting up and splitting at the top to create a system as well. A world-class multi-role combat aircraft. Running in now from your left-hand side, please welcome Turbo in the Typhoon. the full display from David Campbell here today. A magnificent opportunity to really show off the amazing agility of this air show. Putting his first set of 9G just to get the whole display started there at the end of that run-in. And going into double full through at the tail end of it now. That's just the start for first minute. Just so much more yet to come. Generation 1 and the current generation see the difference this systems as well. Those little canards flicking away at the front end, you'll see them darting about at slower speed later on. Helped out by so much onboard systems, of course, head-ups, helmet-mounted displays, and a little lady on board as well, sometimes nicknamed Barking Betty, just to ensure that he keeps it in the safe territory. Luckily, the pilot of this standard, of course, wearing a dry system would help maintain this in safe and stable flight. So just put a bit more power on in just a minute or so, and take it up into a low energy, low speed. Back out now, around 9G. Give you a out of half Cuba. Going into now what we call a max rate turn. That's 10 years. Just what a wonderful finale this is going to be, using all that energy and power there, putting in a couple of extra rolls. One last big 9G turn here. Cracking rounds the circuit.